So far, Eli has written a song. We have recorded all the tracks together. We've mixed it together. We've had some fun with plugins and going through different aux sends with reverbs and delays. But today, we're going to do something to finish everything off, put the icing on the cake right before we can release this thing. Now, if you don't remember what this song sounds like, I highly suggest you click up in the corner here and go back and listen, at least to the mixing process for things. That way you can see where we're landing right now. But if not, let's just take a listen real quick and you can hear where we're sitting before we start mastering. Alright, so we've got it sounding really good. Now let's master this thing. There's a lot to know about mastering. I don't know everything about mastering still, but I know enough to be dangerous. I know what I'm looking for. I know how we want it to get up to the level. We want everything to just blend seamlessly between all of the frequencies. We don't want things popping out that shouldn't pop. We'll get into it. Let's hop into the mastering screen. So the best way to do this actually is if you go right here, we're in our track. So everything is set up here. We're going to go up to Song, and we're going to add to Project. Now you can see we've done a couple other projects here. You have the Christmas EP that we just released this past November. We have the Wishful Forgetting EP that I put out back in October. But here we're going to select right now just New Project. So we're just going to keep this named Floodwater Studios. Let's Get Basic. We're going to change our sample rate to 48K to match what we've recorded already. And we're going to hit OK. Alright, so we can see that it takes a little bit of time to render everything out to get to the mastering page, which, I mean, it is what it is. It's got to render out all those audio files. Now, here it rendered out over 7 minutes of audio, but there is nothing at the end there, so I'm not sure why it exactly rendered that much. But if we just zoom in here, we can adjust everything and simply drag it over and cut off that tail. Now, I do want to leave some space at the end here because we have that ringing out that we did with the EBO, so kind of mimicking feedback for things. But we have to remember, in the grand scheme of everything, this song is going to bleed into another song on the album that Eli's writing. So let's listen to see what we have here for a tail. Alright, so we have more than enough information to work with because it's already stopped there, but that just gives us kind of a baseline of where we can start to crossfade things in and bring that other song up, and we can always chop it off at the end if need be even more. So what we want to do is I'm going to zoom back out a little bit here and just kind of see a full picture of the song itself. So when we're in the mastering side of things, we are going to have some different options. So up here, we have our regular inserts that we can add, different EQs, compression, essentially anything that you want to add to it at this point. When we're in the mastering side of things, though, we have gotten to the point where we like the mix, we like how things are blended together, we like the effects that we've chosen, and all that different stuff that we've layered together for this cake, and we're really just fine-tuning the entire mix for things. And then the second section here is the master section. So this, if you had more than one track that you were mastering, this master section, if you put any sort of EQ on there or a limiter on there, which we're going to do to bring the volume up for things, that would go across the whole spectrum of all the songs that you have in the mastering session. So We are going to do that here. It's not a huge deal because we only have the one track we're working with, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're mixing an actual, a whole session of like 6 songs for an album or something of that nature. So one thing we are going to do is come over here to the master section for the inserts, and I'm going to hit the plus sign, and I'm going to come down for a limiter, which is what we need to use to bring everything up to volume to get it industry standard for things. The limiter that I like to use is by waves, and it's the L1 Plus Ultra Maximizer Stereo. It's a mouthful, but I just love this thing. It gives you a bunch of options. The quantized bits, honestly, I never touch that. Dithering, I leave it exactly where that's at as well. And the shaping, I don't mess with that stuff. What we want to do, we want to look at the threshold and we want to look at the ceiling. Now, when we're looking at that, as we're bringing the threshold down, it's actually going to make the volume increase. It's going to bring everything up here to get the levels we're looking for. So one thing that I do also like to do while I am mastering is over here you have a meter that pops up in the middle of your screen. Now this meter, there's 2 different places that I'm going to make some changes from how it just normally appears. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to K14 metering. So K14 metering, it's a different level of loudness that it's showing you here, where 0 doesn't necessarily mean 0 right off the bat. But as you're getting it up to unity there, it's actually getting just exactly where it needs to be. It gets to, we're going to use some like color theory here when we're looking at things. We don't want it sitting in the red. We kind of want it hanging out in the upper greens to the yellow, kind of hitting the red a little bit. Now that doesn't mean it's peaking. It's just how the actual system is set up for the K14 metering. And another thing we're going to change over here is from the LU to the LUFS. So LUFS is the loudness spectrum that all the streaming platforms go off of. Each one actually kind of changes how they set things, so what LUFS they're looking for. So we're just going to keep an eye on that while we're mastering everything here. So let's just take a look to one of the loudest sections in the song, and we're going to see exactly where we're at metering wise. I haven't touched the limiter here, which I'm just going to turn that off right now just to be safe for things. And let's just take a look at the metering. And we mix and we master with our ears, but visual representations are good too. So let's take a look real quick, and then we'll throw the headphones on and we'll dive into this.
Take you to the place where we were meant to be, in each other's songs. I'll wait for you, my love.
Alright, so we've done a good job mixing this song and recording it at those conservative levels that I talked about in the very first episode of this series, which is up in the corner if you want to take a look at that. Setting conservative levels for things gives you that headroom at the end product. When we're at the last step, the mastering step, it gives us that headroom to move up in volume, and we're not clipping and we're not hurting things and getting that digital noise that's just disgusting and nobody wants to hear. Now, we're hitting, a little bit above unity from what the K14 meter shows, which is perfect. We have some room to go. This over here on the right-hand side, this is actually a stereo field graph that it shows us. So while we're mixing things, you want things left and right and up the middle, so you can kind of fill out the space for everything and make it not just mono right down the middle, hitting everybody in the face. You don't want that. That's not interesting for music. So when we're playing this, you can see there's some sections where it is kind of up and down the middle, and then you pop over here and it's just all over the place and wide and rich, and it's great. And it makes it interesting. So let's mess with the limiter real quick here. So we're going to turn that limiter on, and essentially we're just going to turn the threshold down until we get the volume that we're looking for. So let's take a listen. But first, yeah, that's good.
No control, broken free, my heart will fly to its dreams. So hold my hand, I'll take you to the place where we were meant to be.
Okay, so we may have actually recorded this a little too loud while we were doing things, even though I like to set at the conservative levels. It's different. Nothing is going to be black and white in the studio, except for you have to plug something in to hear it. That's usually the only black and white things. So normally, when I'm mastering, I get down to about -10 for the threshold. This time, it didn't call for that. So we recorded at a slightly higher level, which is perfectly fine. So we can technically mess with our levels here. We can pull down the gain on the track itself and then pull the threshold up for the, or pull the threshold down rather on the limiter. I mean, if you really wanted to go that route, I assume you can, but you know what? We don't have to. So that's the beauty of it. Don't make more work for yourself. Just use what you have and get it to where you need it to be. And sometimes it's quick. Sometimes you have to work for it to make sure things aren't peaking and everything like that. So let's forget about the limiter for now. And we're going to get into some EQ and a little bit of compression for things, just to tighten everything up. So let's take a look over at our inserts here. And actually, forget about that plus sign. If you come down to the bottom right, hit browse, it brings up your normal plugin window. It's a lot easier this way. So I'm going to head over right to my PreSonus made plugins, and I'm going to, where is it? Here it is, Multiband Dynamics. So Multiband Dynamics allows you to make changes across multiple frequencies at the same time. It normally has it set up when you first pull it up in a 5-band section. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a lot to work with. I mean, you can very much fine-tune a lot of things here, but what I like to do is bring it down to a 3-band section. So normally I'll put the first one around 225, which we can type it in. So 225 hertz. And then the top band, I want to cut that off at 25K. Whoops. Not 25K. That would be off the spectrum because it only goes up to 20K. 2.5K is what I meant to say. 2.5. Don't forget the decimals, people. So, I like to work with this 3-band section. That also being said, I like to click on the Edit All Relative up here. So when we're editing all relative, essentially what we're doing is any change that you make, it will affect all 3 at the same time. Just to give you a baseline for some things, and then you can start tweaking and fine-tuning for everything. So let's get this moved up a little bit so we can get over here, and let's take a listen. Okay, so as you can see, when I move the lower threshold down, it is bringing down the actual threshold for each band. You can see the red sections that are coming up here. That is what we've reduced those frequencies by. Over here on the right side of the metering, you can see where it's actually compressing those frequencies. So a lot of times in any mix, really, the mids are going to be the most nuisance to deal with. So what I like to do is kind of get a good baseline, which let's listen one more time.
My heart will fly to its dreams. So hold my
Because I don't want to lose the low end for things. I still want the kick and the bass to really shine through and still be present. But the mid frequencies we can kind of bring down a little bit and get rid of a lot of mud that's clouding things up. So if we click in here and turn off Edit All Relative, now I'm just going to be working in this band section. So let's take a listen.
heart will fly to its dreams. So hold my hand. I'll take you to the place.
So you can see now it's kind of started to clear up a little bit. There's a little less mud with things, and then we can go from there. So let's move on from the multiband dynamics. We're going to take a look at, and I keep hitting that plus sign, but I don't need to. I have my browse window over here. I'm going to go down out of PreSonus, and I know, like I said, don't be afraid of stock plugins, but here I do deviate a little bit from them. I go back down to waves, and what I'm looking for is way down here. It is my SSL Comp. So I'm going to bring that over here. Now this is modeled after the solid state logic, studio equipment. So this compressor, I love this compressor. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to set a preset. I love the preset Subtle Glue. This just brings everything together. Now you can see as soon as I turned it on, we get some noise that's just coming through because of the makeup gain that's thrown up right away. So a lot of times I will just turn the makeup gain down, get that back to where it needs to be, and then we'll kind of keep an eye on things. Now, this is kind of just noise while we're sitting here, while you're playing it. You're not going to hear a whole lot of difference with that noise threshold. But let's take a listen with this.
Heart will fly to its dreams. So hold my hand. I'll take you to.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, we've just added compression. Even though we see that there's some noise happening, it's still quieter to a degree because of the compression. So with that compression, we're going to pop back up with the limiter, and we're going to take a listen again and see if we have some room or need to move the volume up and move the threshold up here.
Take you to the place where we were meant to. Our colors will never fade. So open your eyes, look up to the sky.
So as you can see, we had some room to move up with our limiter because of the compressor, and everything kind of works in tandem. Everything goes back and forth. You affect one thing, you change one thing, it's going to affect multiple things, and that's what we really have to listen for. So I can't do a full mastering session for a YouTube video because it's going to take a lot longer to dial everything in that I'm looking for. But I just wanted to give you the basics. This is a Let's Get Basic series, which this is the final episode. We're going to be releasing this song so soon. In fact, if I can get this mastered tonight, I'm sending everything right over to Eli. I'll have him take a listen with his headphones and a stereo, however he needs to. And if he's happy with it, I'm going to start uploading it tonight. So we'll see exactly how this goes. But I wanted to just show you exactly what we're working with. Now, these settings that I have set here, there's a good chance I may change those while I'm working. Because like I said, everything affects everything else. So keep an ear open because we have some good news with this song coming soon. And you know what, guys? It's been really great hanging out with you for this series. And honestly, I'm so excited for the other series and ideas that we have coming up for the studio here. So go ahead and, in fact, if this is the first video that you're watching and you've made it all the way through, I commend you and I applaud you. And if you enjoyed what you see here and you haven't heard the rest of the Let's Get Basic series, why don't you go ahead and check out the very first episode? It's a whole playlist. You can go through it. It's not that long. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say, so drop us a comment down there, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, just so you know exactly what's happening at Floodwater here. We appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a great day and enjoy yourselves. See ya.
Hearts will be